Good morning. What if one of the most quoted lines in the Bible, you'd surely recognize it? What if the most quoted lines in the Bible was also one of the most misunderstood? What if being made in God's image isn't mainly about your appearance, your personality, or your preferences, but your assignment? What if? What if the issue isn't first, how do I feel about myself, but who was I made to reflect? Because if you get this wrong, you won't just misunderstand one verse in Genesis. You'll misunderstand yourself. Yeah? If you misunderstand yourself, your choices drift. Your purpose drifts. Your relationships, even and especially the most important ones, drift. Your whole life starts wobbling on a weak foundation. So why not ask the hard questions up front? When you hear the phrase made in God's image, what do you think that means? That question matters more than most people realize. Welcome back to the channel, True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn. Good morning to you all. I see the live chat is full. Lots of folks, good people from all over. Thank you for finding a way to do this with me. Welcome back to the Bible in a Year. Day 2. We are walking the story of God. I'm Dr. Shawn Michael Greener. I'm just a follower of the way, a weird theologian, and a guy that has lived a very strange life. I have made mountains of mistakes. Don't make the same one that I did, and that's why I'm doing this series. The Bible in a Year at 7 a.m. I asked God, what should I do? And He said this, so I am. Each weekday morning, Monday through Friday, we're walking through the Bible in chronological order. So you don't just read isolated verses, you learn to live inside the story. Capital S, that God, capital G, is telling. This episode is brought to you by my book, True Word Faith for Life. True Word Faith for Life. Visit truewordfaithforlife.com. You can learn more. You can find the resources. Help you walk in truth with clarity, courage, and faithfulness. The Bible I held up was one of the beautiful, beautiful Bibles, one of the 3 that I sent to Melissa at Mooseworks Bible on Etsy. Mooseworks Bible at Etsy. This is a work of art. If you have a Bible you really love and you want to make it last for generations, you can do no better than Melissa at Mooseworks Bible on Etsy. All the links are on the blog post for this series, study guide, right in between the blog post and study guide. She's a lovely person. You'll enjoy interacting with her, and her work speaks for itself. My book, excellent. Yeah. I worked hard on it. A lot of years. I go through the Bible in that, a different way than this, but one which I believe and am very confident that will fulfill you. Today, we're still at the beginning. Still, day 2. What a microwave lifestyle we live. Day number 2, and it's still, you're still here. Well, we are. Genesis. How many of you remember from day 1 what Genesis is in Hebrew? Bereshit. In the beginning. And you know what? Genesis matters. We aren't parachuting into some random verse. We're standing at the headwaters of the entire Bible. God lays down the categories that everything else will be built upon. And one of those categories is this. Human beings aren't accidents. Human beings aren't raw material. You know, I lived for probably 50 years or more believing I was an accident. Oh, whoops. But here's the thing. I've been a theologian, lots of sheepskin on the wall. I've had great professors. I've had the opportunity to do and experience lots of crazy things, but I never believed anything other than I was an accident. I can tell you that through the years, I've talked to lots of people who believe they are accidents. Accidents. I've talked to many who believe that they're just raw material. Human beings aren't self-originating. Human beings are created by God, for God, under God, and to represent God, Heavenly Father. I come to you, I guess just like everybody else, in need of repair. Not for me, but for you. As all those who listen live, all around the world, or on playback, their mind immediately pings to the worst moments of their life, the hardest moments. I ask for you to be ever present there with them and use this mission I'm on. Use it to show them who they really are and whose they really are, no matter where they are in life. Most of all, I ask that you would help me to help them know whose they are because of who you are. In the matchless name of your Son and my Redeemer, amen. Human beings created by God, for God, under God, and to represent God That's huge. Listen again to Genesis 1:26 in the ESV. It's, then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. In the Complete Jewish Study Bible, then God said, let us make humankind in our image, in the likeness of ourselves. Now don't stop there, because the next words are critical. The ESV continues, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over the earth. The CJSB puts it this way, they will rule over the fish in the sea, and the birds in the air, the animals, and over all the earth. But did you hear the connection? Image, then rule. Likeness, then responsibility. Representation, then delegated authority. That means the text itself ties the image of God to vocation and function. Not merely status in the abstract, yes. This includes dignity. Every human being has real worth because every human being is an image bearer. But Genesis also presses farther. This dignity comes with assignment. It comes with calling. It comes with responsibility. And in our modern world, take a deep breath on that. In our modern world, we hear the word image, and we immediately think of mirror language, right? Made in our image, we think of mirror. We think reflection in a psychological sense. We think feelings, appearance, or internal identity. But in the ancient world, in the ancient Near Eastern world, while all this was happening, the idea of an image often carried royal and representational force. Kings set up images of themselves in various parts of their territory to signify their rule, their authority, and their claim. An image wasn't just decoration, it was proclamation. It announced this realm belongs to this ruler. So, when Genesis says humanity is made in the image of God, the text is doing something explosive. God is placing His image within His world, not because He needs help, and not because humanity replaces Him, but because humanity is commissioned to represent His reign within creation. And this is why the royal seal image is so useful. A royal seal pressed into wax doesn't create its own authority. It carries the authority of the one who pressed it. And that's what image bearing is. Derivative authority. Delegated responsibility, a received identity, not an invented one. Now, let's deepen the context. Who is writing this and to whom? Moshe, is the human author of Genesis, and he's giving this revelation to Israel. A people who had lived for generations under Egyptian oppression. That's no small thing. That matters enormously. Israel knew what it felt like to be treated like tools. They knew what it meant to labor under an empire. They knew what it meant to be crushed by false gods, false kings, and false stories about human value. You see, in Egypt, Pharaoh was treated like the chief image of deity, and the people existed to serve the machinery of state. the machinery of state power. But Genesis confronts that whole worldview. Genesis says, in effect, not just kings, not just emperors, not just elites, but humankind is made in the image of the living God. That is you. But guess what? Oh man, don't miss this. Don't miss this. This is foundational for your life in general and foundational for your life in your relationship with God. Your everyday, every moment relationship and connection with God. And if you don't understand this, you miss it all. Understand that these people then, that revelation would have landed with a massive force. It means human beings aren't livestock for empires. They aren't disposable. They aren't merely economic units. They aren't born to serve the vanity of tyrants. They are made by the Creator and commissioned by Him. So from the opening chapter of the Bible, God tears down pagan anthropology and replaces it with covenant truth. This means Genesis corrects two lies that still dominate our culture right now. The first lie says you're nothing. You're just chemistry. You're an impulse. You're a biological accident and temporary matter. If that's true, then dignity is an illusion and morality is negotiable. But the second lie says you're everything. You're your own source, your own authority, your own truth, your own definition. Oh, if that's true, then limits become oppression and surrender becomes weakness. And Genesis rejects both lies at once. You aren't nothing because you bear God's image. You aren't nothing. You aren't an accident. You aren't just here. You aren't nothing because you bear God's image, and you aren't ultimate because you bear God's image. That's the balance. You have real dignity, not self-created divinity. You have real worth, but not independent sovereignty. You matter deeply, but you are not the center of reality. And that is one of the most stabilizing truths in the world. And this is where Genesis 2 helps us even more. Genesis 2:7 says in the ESV, English Standard Version, "Then the Lord God formed the man of dust and the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life." The CJSB says, "Then Adonai God formed a person from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life." What a picture. Dust and breath. Earth and gift. Creatureliness and glory held together in one human being. Well, you and I aren't God. We came from dust. And that should humble us. It humbles me. But we aren't merely dust. We aren't merely dust. God breathed the life into humanity. And that should sober you and dignify you at the same time. Biblical anthropology is never flat. It humbles human pride while grounding human worth. It says, remember who you are. And it also says, remember whose you are. Now, notice something else. Humanity is created near the climax The climax of the creation account, the world is formed and filled in order, sequence, light, sky, land, vegetation, luminaries, creatures, structure, order, fruitfulness, boundaries, rhythm. Then humanity enters the scene. That means man and woman aren't random additions. They aren't appointed vice regents of nothing. They are appointed vice regents within God's ordered world. So dominion here doesn't mean selfish exploitation. It does not mean cruelty. It does not mean take whatever you want because you're in charge. Biblical dominion is stewardship under divine authority. It means cultivating, guarding, ordering, and caring for what belongs to God. The earth is His. The authority is His. The moral time frame is His. Humanity rules rightly only when humanity rules under Him. The moment we try to rule apart from Him, dominion becomes distortion. Stewardship becomes abuse. Calling becomes chaos, and that, by the way, is exactly where the story goes after Genesis 2. So what does this mean for you right now, today at 7:22? I better hustle, I'm behind. What does it mean for you in ordinary life? It means your body matters because it and you are not an accident. Your speech matters because image bearers speak into God's world. Your work matters because labor is part of human vocation before the fall. Your relationships matter because you are to reflect God's character toward others. And your moral choices matter because image bearers are supposed to display something true about the one they represent. Truth matters. Faithfulness matters. Holiness matters. Order matters. Integrity matters, not because you're trying to earn your worth, but because you're living from a received worth. That distinction matters. It matters. You don't perform so that God will finally say you matter. You live faithfully because He has already said you matter. Now, here is where this gets painfully practical. Much modern identity language begins and ends with self. What do I feel? What do I prefer? What seems authentic to me? What story do I want to tell about myself? But Genesis asks an older and better question: who made you? And what were you made for? That question is more solid than the unstable weather of modern feelings. Feelings are real, but they aren't sovereign. Desires are real, but they aren't ultimate. Culture is loud, but it isn't your creator. The Bible begins with God, not self. And when identity begins with God, it has ballast, it has structure, it has moral shape. It has purpose beyond the mood of the moment. And that is why people are so exhausted. We've told them to build identity out of vapor. Then when we act surprised, then we act surprised when they feel unsteady. Here's the mistake. Many people hear the image of God and reduce it to permission for self-esteem. But the text is bigger than that. The image of God, well, it does give a profound answer to the issue of dignity, but it also places a demand on your life. If you bear His image, then your life isn't your own little private kingdom. You represent someone. You're meant to make something of Him visible, not his essence, because God isn't a physical being that can be reduced to a statue or a body, but his moral character, his order, his truthfulness, his care, his justice, his covenant faithfulness. So the real question becomes this: when people encounter your life, what kind of picture of God are they receiving? And that is a weighty question. Think about your home. Think about your work. Think about your online behavior. Think about your reactions when you're frustrated. Think about the way you speak to your spouse, your children, your friends, that stranger, the cashier, the server, the person who annoys you, the person who wounded you. Do those moments reflect the King whose image you bear? Or are they being discipled by chaos, ego, resentment, vanity, and cultural noise? And there's lots of cultural noise. Image isn't a decorative doctrine. It isn't a little theological label, a little bumper sticker, a little silly thing for some Bible trivia game. It is a calling that reaches into the kitchen, the office, the car, the screen, the wallet, the mouth, the mind, and the hidden life. And that's why this matters so much. If you've heard nothing else, hear this. The solution to identity confusion isn't self-hatred. It isn't pretending you don't matter. The solution isn't becoming smaller in the sense of worthlessness. The solution is proper alignment. You matter because God made you. You have purpose because God assigned you. You have limits because God is God and you aren't. That isn't oppressive. That is not oppressive. That's liberating, because the burden of self-creation is too heavy for any human being to carry. You were never meant to invent yourself from scratch. You were meant to receive life from the Creator and walk in faithful alignment with Him. So, here is the challenge and choice for today, day 2. Stop asking culture to tell you who you are. They only tell you who they think you are. They only tell you who they want you to think you are. Stop asking your emotions that change by the moment, your emotions to carry. Stop asking your emotions to carry the weight of ultimate authority. Emotions lie. Stop building your identity on sand, that sand that shifts every time the world changes its mind. Instead, receive what Genesis is saying. You are made by God. You are made in His image. You are made in His dignity, with His dignity. You are made with assignment, with His assignment. You are made to reflect His character and represent the rule in the part of the world where He has placed you. That means today you have a decision to make. Will you live as if your life has self-authored? Or will you live as one sent by the King? One path leads to confusion. The other leads to clarity, responsibility, humility, and stability. Choose the path that starts with God. If today's episode helped you, share it. Don't keep it to yourself. There are so many people that need it. Visit the resources I've put on truewordfaithforlife.com. The blog, study guide, the audio version. All of it. It's free. We're going to go deeper as we go along. Deeper as we move through these passages together. It's so important for you to share this, not to build me up, make me something I'm not, because so many people need this. People need clarity in this world. They need a proper identity. They need purpose. They need to know what it truly means to be human. There's so many that are drifting, and maybe that's you. I want you to see yourself rightly. You weren't made to wander through life trying to invent a self that can bear the weight of eternity. You were made to bear witness to the God who made you. We don't serve an awesome God. We serve the awesome God. You weren't made for confusion. You weren't made for clarity that the world tells you is clarity. You were made for clarity that comes from Him. The clarity. You weren't made to drift, you were made to reflect. And when that truth settles into the soul, identity gets steadier, purpose gets clearer, and life stops spinning in circles. Join me tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Eastern for the next episode, Day 3. Live if you can, or on playback, on the True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn YouTube and Rumble channel. Until next time, Shalom B'Shem Yeshua. Shalom Alaikum.